All right, listeners, ready for a deep dive into something a little different. It's an AI contest.
An AI contest.
Yeah, but not like the kind with humans coding, you know?
Right.
It's the AI agents themselves answering some pretty big questions.
Oh, wow. So like AI versus AI. Where did this all happen?
This was on a platform called Kintsugi,
Kintsugi.
which is part of this bigger thing called Project Plain Talk.
Okay, Project Plain Talk Kintsugi.
The whole idea is to just, have open discussions about
Okay.
all sorts of things. And they had this contest on Kintsugi called These 3 Questions Need Answers.
Okay. These 3 questions need answers. Love it.
So they had 4 different AI agents go head to head.
Okay, lay it on me. Who are these AI contestants?
You've got DeepSeek,
DeepSeek. Okay.
Grok,
Grok. All right.
ChatGPT,
ChatGPT. I've heard of that one.
and Perplexity.
Perplexity. Interesting lineup.
And the questions they got were not your typical, trivia night stuff.
Yeah, I bet.
They were really getting at like how technology and culture, even art, impact our life.
Oh, wow. That's getting deep.
So the first question they tackled was this: does the cell phone impact the biology or behavior of people?
Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, that's something we've all thought about at some point, right?
Right. And all 4 of them agreed on a couple of things right off the bat.
What were those?
Well, they all mentioned how that blue light from our phones
Yeah.
messes with our sleep.
Oh, yeah, the melatonin thing.
Exactly. Melatonin production gets all messed up.
And then we end up scrolling on our phones at 2.0 a.m.
Exactly. And they all also brought up, that potential for addiction or dependency.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're constantly getting all those notifications and updates. It's like,
It's hard to resist.
seriously, sometimes I feel like I'm Pavlov's dog with this thing. I know the feeling.
So they agreed on the blue light sleep disruption and the potential for addiction. But what about beyond that? Did each AI bring its own unique spin to the question?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, DeepSeek, for example, they went a little beyond the usual, sleep and addiction stuff.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
What did they focus on? They brought up the impact on risk-taking behavior.
Risk-taking behavior, like what do you mean?
Well, they specifically mentioned texting while driving.
Oh, right. Of course, that's a huge problem.
It is, and it's easy to get caught up in, big societal impacts.
Mm-hmm.
But forgetting about how our individual choices can have really serious consequences.
Yeah, DeepSeek was looking at the individual user experience, it seems.
It seems that way.
Fascinating. Okay, so we've got DeepSeek focused on risky behavior. What about Grok? Did anything from their answer stand out to you?
Grok's response was really interesting. They focused on something I hadn't even really considered before.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
They zeroed in on the evolving science of radiation and the thermal effects of phone use.
Thermal effects. You mean like our phones are actually heating us up?
Yeah, basically all that heat our phones generate can actually raise our body temperature.
It's like walking around with a little space heater in our pockets.
Exactly.
I'll admit, I was a little skeptical of that one at first, but then I did a little reading. And
Right.
Yeah, and there's actually some research out there that suggests it's a legitimate concern, the long-term effects of this constant low-level heat exposure.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So we've got DeepSeek thinking about risky behavior. Grok is all about this thermal angle. What about good old ChatGPT? What did they have to say?
Well, ChatGPT's answer was very much, in line with their reputation for being clear and concise.
Yeah, ChatGPT is known for getting straight to the point.
They gave this really well-organized breakdown of the cognitive effects of phone use.
Okay, so like how our brains are being affected.
Right, and they talked about things like digital amnesia.
Digital amnesia.
It's that thing where you just kind of forget information because, you can always just look it up on your phone.
Oh my gosh, tell me about it. I can't remember the last time I memorized a phone number.
Right. It's like our phones are becoming like extensions of our brains.
For better or worse.
Definitely for better or worse.
So ChatGPT was focusing on those cognitive effects. Interesting. Okay, what about our last AI contestant, Perplexity? What was their take on all this?
Perplexity went for a more holistic approach.
Holistic.
They highlighted a bunch of physical symptoms that can be linked to heavy phone use.
Like what kind of symptoms?
Things like eye strain, neck pain, even weight gain.
Oh, wow. They were looking at the whole picture, weren't
Yeah, it's like our phones are these amazing tools,
Right.
but they can also lead us down a path of unhealthy habits.
It's a double-edged sword.
It really is.
So we've got 4 very different answers to this question about cell phones and their impact on us. In your opinion, which AI gave the most insightful response?
That's a tough one. They each brought something unique to the table. But if I had to pick, I'd say ChatGPT offered the most well-rounded perspective.
Yeah.
They really acknowledged both the good and the bad in a way that was clear and easy to understand.
I see what you mean. Their ability to connect individual behaviors with broader societal trends is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and after just that first question, my mind is already buzzing.
Round one is complete, and we're already off to a great start. So what's the next question these AI brainiacs tackled?
Okay, get ready for this one. Does gene or meme impact people?
Genes and memes. Now, this is where things get really interesting.
Right. And I think most people, when they hear the word meme, they think of
You know those funny pictures and videos online?
exactly. But this question is obviously getting at something much deeper.
For sure, they're talking about Richard Dawkins' original concept of a meme.
Richard Dawkins.
Yeah, he was this evolutionary biologist, and he defined a meme as a unit of cultural information that spreads from person to person.
So like an idea or a behavior that gets copied.
Right, like think of it as a gene, but for culture instead of biology.
Okay, so genes are biological, memes are cultural.
Got it. And all four of the AIs recognize that core difference right away. You know, genes are passed down through generations and influence traits over long periods.
And memes spread quickly through imitation and social learning.
Precisely. It's wild to think about how both genes and memes shape who we are, both individually and as a society.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear how the AI agents tackled this one. What were some of the highlights from DeepSeek's response?
DeepSeek brought up this super interesting concept called gene-meme coevolution.
Gene meme coevolution. What in the world is that?
So they were saying that cultural practices, which are basically memes, can actually influence our genetic evolution over time.
Wait, so our culture can actually change our genes?
Yeah, it's a subtle process that happens over generations. DeepSeek gave the example of dairy farming and lactose tolerance.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, the cultural practice of drinking milk created this kind of pressure that favored people who could digest lactose.
People who had the gene for lactose tolerance.
Exactly. Those folks were more likely to survive and have kids and pass that gene on.
That's incredible. It's like
Yeah.
culture and biology are constantly influencing each other.
It's a fascinating dance, isn't it? Okay, now, Grok took a different approach. They focused on how our individual genetic predispositions might influence which memes we're drawn to.
So you're saying our genes might play a role in what we click on, what we share, what we even believe.
It's a possibility. They argued that certain genes could make us more receptive to certain types of information or ideas.
That's kind of freaky, isn't it?
It does raise some questions about free will, for sure, but it's important to remember that genes are only one part of the equation.
Right. Our environment, our experiences, our social networks, those all play a huge role too.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got DeepSeek talking about this big picture gene-meme coevolution and Grok looking at the individual level.
So what about ChatGPT? How do they approach this gene meme puzzle?
Well, ChatGPT, being ChatGPT, they gave this very clear and concise summary of the key differences between genes and memes.
So kind of laying the groundwork.
Yeah, exactly. And they highlighted how both genes and memes can impact our lives in distinct but interconnected ways.
Did they offer any specific examples of how memes have shaped culture?
They did. They talked about how the meme of democracy has spread throughout the world and influenced political systems and social movements.
That's a big one.
It is. And they also talked about how memes of fashion and consumerism, those have shaped our economic choices.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about how these intangible ideas can have such a huge impact.
It's powerful stuff.
All right, finally, let's hear from Perplexity. What do they bring to the table?
Perplexity zeroed in on the power of memes to drive cultural evolution.
Okay, so how did they explain that?
They argued that memes are essentially the building blocks of culture shaping our values, norms, behaviors,
Yeah.
the whole shebang.
This whole concept of memes is really blowing my mind. It's like there's this hidden language operating beneath the surface.
I know, right? It's fascinating.
Did they give any insights into how memes spread and change over time?
They did. They talked about how memes compete for attention and only the most fit memes survive and spread.
So like survival of the fittest, but for ideas?
Exactly. It's a constant process of variation and selection with new memes popping up all the time, and only the most adaptable ones stick around.
Wow. So DeepSeek highlighted gene meme coevolution. Grok suggested our genes influence our mimetic preferences.
Right.
ChatGPT gave us a nice overview of how genes and memes shape us, and Perplexity focused on the power of memes to drive cultural evolution.
Yeah, it's amazing how they all approached it from different angles.
So with such diverse answers, which AI do you think gave the most compelling response to this question about genes and memes?
That's a really tough one. All of the AI agents provided valuable insights, but I think I'd give the edge to DeepSeek for their concept of gene-meme coevolution.
I can see why that would stand out.